Israel's defence forces bring members of the press on a tour of tunnels under the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. They claim they lead to a Hamas militant command centre.
The outcome of the Dutch elections could be a new headache for the European Union after the Eurosceptic hard-right Party for Freedom came out on top.
This is what's left of Gaza city centre. These images of war-ravaged streets were taken by Israel's defence forces when transporting journalists to a tunnel under the Al-Shifa hospital on Wednesday. The IDF says Hamas militants are using this space as a command centre to conduct, quote, terrorist activities. But Palestinian officials have repeatedly denied it has built passages under the medical compound.
There is a room with air conditioning inside. You see their bathroom that they are here, and even a small kitchen. So it means that when they are trying to survive, they go down, uses hospitals as a human shields, and they can stay here for a long time.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's soldiers also claim to have found stockpiles of weapons, laptops and protective gear deep underground.
Now there is agreement coming, and maybe it will occur. We will let and free our hostages. We have a moral obligation for our hostages, but when we bring them back, we go on and we defeat Hamas.
For weeks, Al-Shifa hospital in the northern Gaza Strip has been the focal point of the fighting between Israel and Palestinian militants. The reporters were not taken inside the hospital and were only allowed to see a portion of the sprawling complex. Israelis ever waiting for the return of their loved ones. At the 11th hour, a senior official announced that the planned exchange of some Palestinians held in Israeli prisons with 50 Israeli hostages in Gaza will be delayed until at least Friday. There is also doubt over when a promised temporary ceasefire will begin. Last Wednesday night, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, accompanied by other members of the Israeli leadership, sought to reassure the public the hostage deal was the right decision.
לא תמיד מבצע צבאי אפשרי, ולכן איננו ממתינים. אנחנו מנצלים כל שביב הזדמנות לשחרור חטופינו, כי השבתם היא משימה קדושה. צה"ל וכל גורמי הביטחון תומכים באופן מלא במתווה.
In the run-up to the agreed truce, Israel has continued its ground and air operation in Gaza. It was triggered by the Hamas militants' 7th of October attack, which killed 1,200 people. Netanyahu has vowed to win with a, quote, absolute majority. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 14,000 people, including more than 5,000 children, have been killed in Israel's campaign, which has so far primarily targeted hospitals, refugee camps and places of worship. A police raid in Berlin. Hundreds of German officers stormed premises across the country on Thursday linked to members of the Hamas militant group and its supporters. It follows a ban on the Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, the Samidoun, after it staged an event celebrating the 7th of October attacks in Israel. Any activity viewed as pro-Hamas has been outlawed, including the spread of propaganda and fundraising. 15 properties were searched in Berlin, the states of Lower Saxony, North Rhine-Westphalia and Schleswig-Holstein.
The outcome of the Dutch elections could be a new headache for the European Union. The Eurosceptic hard-right Party for Freedom won the election with 37 seats, far from an absolute majority, but enough to enable its leader, Geert Wilders, to lead a possible coalition government. One of his signature proposals during the electoral campaign was a binding referendum on leaving the EU. For the moment, though, the European Commission isn't worried.
Elections take place at regular intervals in the member states, and this does not per se put in doubt in any way the membership of any country to the European Union. We continue to count on the Netherlands' strong participation in the European Union.
Even if a so-called Nexit is unlikely to happen, there are three major sources of concern at the EU level if Wilders takes power, according to some experts. One being a hard stance on immigration, military aid to Ukraine, and the EU's long-term budget.
Wilders will not be alone in that government, so the Dutch government cannot make a U-turn on Ukraine. But still, there will be some difficulties there reaching consensus. I think we could see, with Wilders in power, a much more critical position of the Dutch government when it comes to the budget of the European Union, the multi-annual financial framework, which will have to be soon enough negotiated. And even with, let's say, more pro-European governments in the Netherlands, we have seen the Dutch being quite critical and pushing for not increasing the EU budget. Now, with this new government, it can be even more so the case.
However, Wilders' party needs at least 76 members of the parliament to secure a majority. Coalition talks will probably take a long time, though, given that the last Dutch government was only formed 10 months after the election.
And the big question is whether the Dutch will be able to put together a government before or after the next European elections. I think that's going to be very important for Europe, especially, because the question is who is going to be representing the Netherlands next June, July, when the new European Commission is going to be set up. The priorities of the new political cycle in Europe are going to be negotiated.
He also says that the result in the Netherlands is not necessarily a sign of a far-right or Eurosceptic wave in Europe, where every national outcome depends more on the internal political cycle.
Brussels is set to send €920 million to Budapest over the next year after the European Commission approved Hungary's updated post-COVID recovery plan. The money, earmarked for energy security measures, will be paid with no strings attached, despite the bloc having frozen other funds to Hungary over rule of law concerns and democratic backsliding. The surprise move comes just days after Viktor Orbán's government unveiled a controversial billboard campaign targeting European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and accused the EU of wanting to create migrant ghettos in Hungary in a national consultation.
I have to say I'm perplexed. Orbán has just shaken Putin's hand. He's putting up posters, putting Commission President von der Leyen in some sort of globalist conspiracy context, and he is about to pass legislation again attacking democracy and the rule of law.
Budapest has also threatened to block the EU's proposed €50 billion financial package for Ukraine, sparking fears Orbán could use his veto on EU foreign policy as a bargaining chip for EU funds.
The European Union should not allow blackmail. If they give in now to Orbán and give him money in exchange for lifting the veto, this is going to be back with a force as soon as he can. And then he's going to try to extract more and more.
The cash comes from the Repower EU chapter of Hungary's plan, designed to reduce dependency on Russian fossil fuels through investments in renewable energy and green transport. The €920 million will be paid in 2 instalments over the next 12 months, pending the approval of EU finance ministers. But further payments can only be made if Orbán meets so-called super milestones, by cracking down on corruption and improving the independence of the Hungarian judiciary. And the Commission could recover the funds if he does not comply.
If we find that certain amounts, regular payments should not be made because certain milestones and targets were not met, then the Commission has a possibility to recover the respective pre-financing amount.
The Commission says Hungary has presented the 3rd most ambitious green recovery plan in the bloc, after Luxembourg and Denmark.
Finland has announced it will close all but one of its border crossings with Russia after a rise in the arrival of refugees and migrants. Helsinki's government claims Moscow is intentionally pushing foreign nationals towards the country's frontiers. The Finnish government previously closed 4 border stations on the eastern side, but that has done little to limit the arrival of hundreds of migrants.
Kyytejä pohjoiseen raja-asemille riittää ja polkupyörien rajan ylittämiseen löytyy. Venäjän viranomaiset eivät ole toimintaan puuttuneet, päinvastoin ei ole merkkejä siitä, että he auttavat tässä. Maahantulon välineellistäminen on yksi keino yrittää vaikuttaa Suomen ja EUn sisäiseen tilanteeseen ja rajaturvallisuuteen.
The governor of the Murmansk region released a video on Tuesday which allegedly shows people of Middle Eastern and African origins gathered near the Finnish border. Since the beginning of the month, more than 600 people without valid travel documents have come to Finland via Russia. Helsinki has accused Moscow of weaponising desperate refugees and migrants in retaliation for its recent NATO membership. Russia denies the charges.
A bushfire is burning through some of Perth's northern suburbs, with many properties already lost. The fire began Wednesday afternoon in a pine tree plantation in northeastern Perth and was fanned overnight by high-speed winds. No deaths have been reported, but several firefighters have sustained minor injuries. Dozens of residents have been evacuated and at least 10 homes destroyed by the wildfire. Authorities have said the blaze would take several days to bring it under control. The cause of the fire is still under investigation.
The Vatican has installed a 27-metre-high silver fir tree in St. Peter's Square to celebrate Christmas. The 6.5-tonne tree comes from a forest in the Piedmont region of northern Italy. The 56-year-old fir tree was due to be cut down since it was at risk of collapse. Like every year, a nativity scene will be assembled around the tree. Once decorated, it will light up the square on December the 9th. After the holidays, the tree will be turned into children's toys.